You're watching Nightline. I'm Anita. News making the headlines. Government giving more attention to renewable energy, says Prime Minister. And Malaysia's inflation rises to 4.4% in July. We begin with this headlining story. As an initial step to boost the country's commitment in the energy transition, the Prime Minister said the government is approving the allocation and redistribution of a renewable energy RE quota of 1,200 megawatts for solar resources. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said with the Virtual Power Purchase Agreement, VPPA, the government expects 14,000 job opportunities and new investments worth 6 billion ringgit to be created to support the development of the country's RE industry. The Prime Minister was speaking at the opening ceremony of the 5th International Sustainable Energy Summit, ISES, in the federal capital on Monday. He said the new quota will be distributed to the implementation of programs under existing mechanisms, including the new Enhanced Dispatch Arrangement, NIDA, and solar installation programs on roofs of buildings.
Dengan persetujuan ini, kerajaan menjangkakan 14,000 peluang pekerjaan dan nilai pelaburan baru berjumlah 6 bilion ringgit dapat diwujudkan bagi menyokong pembangunan industri TBB negara.
He added they would also be distributed to exploration of new RE program implementation methods, such as solar park development, electricity supply for the purpose of new data centres, as well as green hydrogen generation. The Prime Minister also expressed confidence that if a viable energy transition policy can be established, Malaysia, blessed with various explorable RE resources, will be able to attract more investment from companies that need a green electricity supply. Speaking at another event, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said Saudi Arabia conglomerate Ajlan Bros Holding Group is set to invest close to 34 billion ringgit in 9 Malaysian companies. The 9 companies are from the semiconductor, social trade, medical technology, defence and entertainment industries.
9 company yang menandatangani MOU bersama dengan syarikat Ajlan Brothers Holding Group daripada Arab Saudi. Jadi dari segi investment je sebanyak 34 bilion ringgit yang melibatkan 9 company tadi.
The Prime Minister was speaking during the Memoranda of Understanding signing on Monday. Ajlan Bros is one of the top real estate conglomerates in Saudi Arabia, specialising in residential, industrial, commercial and warehousing space. It has made considerable investments in more than 25 countries and has more than $15 billion worth of assets, as well as a revenue of more than $2 billion. Malaysia's inflation jumped 4.4%, its highest in more than a year, as the cost of food continues to accelerate. The increase in inflation was also due to the low base effect last year as a result of the electricity bill discount from 5 to 40%, according to total usage given to domestic consumers. For July, the food index rose 6.9%, serving as the main contributor to the increase in overall inflation. The core inflation and inflation without fuel also registered an increase of 3.4% and 4.2% respectively in July as compared to the same month of the preceding year. For the January to July period, the inflation increased 2.8% as compared to the same period last year. Meanwhile, economists urge the government to continue maintaining the current price control policies in a bid to control the inflation rate.
So, in terms of how the government should manage inflation, it will be a continuation of the current policy of subsidies and price caps at least until the end of the year. This is helping Malaysia to have lower inflation than other countries in the region, in Singapore or Indonesia or Thailand or places like that, where inflation is much higher than we're seeing here in Malaysia. So the government's current policy through control of prices with subsidies and price caps should continue. We expect it to continue until at least the end of the year.
MIDF Head of Research Imran Yusuf said the price pressures could ease in anticipation of improved supply of intermediate materials, signalling easing pressures on the global supply chain.
In the environment of elevated global commodity prices, inflationary pressures in Malaysia is driven by higher food inflation. We expect food prices increases to record higher inflation of 4.5% this year, amongst others attributable to the removal of subsidies on several food items. Furthermore, increases in production costs will also contribute to higher selling prices. On a positive note, though, the slight downward trend in global commodity prices may ease Malaysia's food inflation pressures in the second half of this year, with domestic demand firming and taking into account higher production costs. We are forecasting headline CPI to average higher at 2.8% this year versus 2.5% from last year.
Pulau Pinang wants the 2023 budget to be tabled on October 7th to focus on talent development to tackle the shortfall faced by many economic sectors. Chief Minister Chow Kon Yeow hoped that the federal government, which put much emphasis on health, education, infrastructure development and digitalisation, would also focus on talent development. Pulau Pinang also hopes that there will be more funds for vocational training and skills centres. Chow said these will remain Malaysia's competitive edge in the region, adding that if Malaysia is unable to boost talent, the nation will lose out. The CM said investors tended to consider various factors, but a skilled talent pool would allow the country to stand out. Chow proposed that incentives be introduced to foreigners already studying in local universities, such as allowing them to work in the country upon graduation. He said this will fill the gap in the talent pipeline in the country. The ceiling price of 9 ringgit 40 cent per kilogram for local whole fresh chicken will not be raised after Wednesday, while the 3 cent subsidy for eggs will remain. Chairman of the Jihad Against Inflation Special Task Force, Tan Sri Anwar Musa, said the Cabinet also agreed that only certain farms rearing chickens specifically for export can begin exporting after getting approval from the Agriculture and Food Industries Ministry, MAFI, in October.
Saya difahamkan ada lebih kurang 100 lebih ladang yang accredited sebab ayam yang diekspor ni 95% ke Singapura. Dan pengimport di Singapura ada membuat accreditation beberapa ladang khususnya di Johor dan Melaka. Jadi ladang itu saja kita benarkan mula menternak untuk ekspor. Yang lain tidak dibenarkan.
He was speaking at a media conference after chairing a meeting of the task force on Monday. The Communications and Multimedia Minister added that the latest cabinet decision did not have an end date for local whole fresh chicken, as the government would monitor the overall chicken output and export volume before making any further decisions. On another matter, Tan Sri Anwar said almost 20,000 people will take part in the 2022 National Day Parade at Dataran Merdeka on Wednesday. Tan Sri Anwar, who is also chairman of the Main Committee for National Day and Malaysia Day celebrations, said the number had increased compared to the previous 16,000 participants.
Kita bermula dengan 10,000, kemudian dah naik 16 sekarang. Saya ucap terima kasih kerana kita terpaksa accommodate lah banyak permintaan dan sebenarnya itu menggalakkan. Jadi sekarang ni yang terlibat dalam perarakan kita ni hampir 20,000 lah.
Tan Sri Anwar said he was satisfied with the preparations and hoped everything would run smoothly as planned during the actual ceremony on Wednesday. He also advised the public who want to witness the parade to arrive before 7:30 a.m. to avoid congestion, as several roads would be closed. After a 2-year lapse due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the National Day main celebration, themed Keluarga Malaysia Teguh Bersama, will be back on August 31st, with some 50,000 people expected to converge at the historic square beginning 7 a.m. Among the highlights is the arrival of Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Al-Sultan Abdullah Rayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah, and Raja Pemaisuri Agong, Tunku Hajah Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandariah, on a horse-drawn carriage from Menara DBKL. Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Hajah Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandariah on Monday graced the opening of the Royal Floria Putrajaya 2022. Her Majesty also spent over an hour touring the Anjong Floria Garden, which showcases various species and cultivars of flowers and ornamental plants. Her Majesty was welcomed on arrival by Federal Territories Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Shahidan Kasim. In her speech, Tunku Azizah expressed her love for ornamental and vegetable plants and said that tending to the palace garden has been part of her daily activities with the staff at Istana Negara.
Kebun masih ada, cuma mungkin sekarang ni oleh kerana kesibukan, kuranglah kami semua pergi ke kebun. Kita kena balik ke kebun semulalah kerana mungkin kita tanam pokok bunga pula kali ini.
The Queen was also presented with a Phalaenopsis orchid species as a memento from the Putrajaya Corporation. Themed Great Floria, the 12th edition of the Flower and Garden Festival, is now open to visitors until September 4th. In keeping with the selection of orchids as the theme flower, the festival gathers around 10,000 orchids and 400,000 plants of various species. Coming up next, NASA's Artemis moon mission is set to launch. Stay with us.
Pasukan berentap demi menjulang Piala Idaman. Kami bawakan kepada anda perlawanan tumpuan Liga Super 2022. Hanya di TV 9 dan Astro 149.
We're back with news on the foreign front. NASA's most powerful rocket yet is set to blast off Monday on the maiden voyage of a mission to take humans back to the moon and eventually to Mars. 50 years after the last time astronauts set foot on the moon, the new space program called Artemis is set to get underway with the blast-off of the uncrewed 98-meter Space Launch System, or SLS rocket, at 8:33 a.m. local time from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Tens of thousands of people, including US Vice President Kamala Harris, are expected to gather along the beach to watch the launch, which has been decades in the making. The goal of the flight, dubbed Artemis 1, is to test the SLS and the Orion crew capsule that sits atop the rocket. The capsule will orbit the moon to see if the vessel is safe for people in the near future, coming within 100 kilometers at its closest approach and then firing its engines to get to a distance of 40,000 miles beyond, a record for a spacecraft rated to carry humans. Over in Indonesia, a 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra Island, the third tremor to rattle the area since early Monday. Authorities said Indonesia's Meteorology and Geophysics Agency, BMKG, recorded the shallow quake off the Mentawai Islands off Sumatra's west coast just before 10:30 a.m. and said it did not trigger a tsunami warning. It was reported that 3 consecutive earthquakes struck the area with increasing intensity, which started with a 5.2 magnitude tremor recorded before dawn, followed by a 5.4 magnitude quake less than an hour later, and the most recent one, a 6.1 magnitude quake. According to a local disaster official in the Mentawai Islands, residents in several villages had to be evacuated to higher ground, and a local church, school and health facility have been slightly damaged. So far, the BMKG said there were no reports of casualties, but there was minor damage to buildings on Siberut Island. The European Union foreign ministers are expected to discuss this week an appeal led by Ukraine to ban Russian tourists from visiting Europe. The idea, to be studied in a two-day meeting starting Tuesday in Prague, has divided EU nations, with some wholeheartedly agreeing with it, while others resist, as it would shut the door on dissident Russians fleeing their homeland. In February, the European Union restricted visas in certain categories for Russians linked to the Kremlin, including for officials, diplomatic passport holders and company bosses. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is now demanding the West to shut its borders to all Russians, including tourists, saying they should live in their own world until they change their philosophy. Finland, which has Europe's longest border with Russia, will from Thursday slash the number of Russian tourist visa applications it handles to just 10% of the usual 1,000 received per day. Meanwhile, several EU countries, among them France, Germany and Portugal, insist that Russian journalists and other civilians fearing persecution should continue to be allowed entry. We're back with sports news. Football. Mario Götze's first goal since his return to the Bundesliga helped set Eintracht Frankfurt on the way to its first win of the season as they beat newly promoted Werder Bremen 4-3. The visitors took the lead with less than 2 minutes on the clock when an attack was kept alive after a corner was cleared off the line and Randall Colomwani cut the ball back for Götze to net his first Bundesliga goal since December 2019. However, Anthony Jung levelled in the 14th minute and Bremen took the lead just 3 minutes later when Leonardo Bittencourt headed home a free kick. Daichi Kamada created the equaliser in the 32nd minute with an assist for Kolomwani, and Jesper Lindström lobbed the ball over Bremen goalkeeper Jiri Pavlenka 7 minutes later to restore Frankfurt's advantage. Frankfurt started the second half almost as quickly as they began the first, and Jibril Sow fired into the top right corner 3 minutes after the break. Bremen were then awarded a last-minute penalty for a push by Evan Ndika on Marvin Duksch. Niklas Füllkrug converted the penalty, but Frankfurt held on to consign Bremen to their first defeat back in the top flight. On to the Major League Soccer. Josef Martinez and Juan Jose Purata scored back-to-back goals midway through the second half, and Atlanta United rallied to beat DC United 3-2 on. DC United manager Wayne Rooney was given a yellow card late in the first half for his protestations, and then watched his club blow leads of 1-0 and 2-1 in the second. Martinez found the net in the 62nd minute with his team high-trying 7th goal, and Purata scored the match winner 8 minutes later with his 3rd goal this season. Atlanta has won 6 of the last 7 matchups with DC United and leads the all-time series 8-6. Up next, police seize drugs worth over 17 million ringgit in separate raids. This and more after the short break. Stay tuned.
Najis sekali.
Ini sama tai.
Cuba disiasat dengan sebuahnya. Janganlah siasat dalam poket ini.
Kerajaan perlu mendengar.
Aduan rakyat kembali bersiaran.
Hello?
Anda hubungi.
Emailkan masalah anda ke aduanrakyat@tv3.com.my beserta nombor telefon untuk dihubungi. Aduan Rakyat, TV3 ambil berat.
Still on Nightline, Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said he was confident that a 10 million ringgit donation to his Yayasan Akal Budi Foundation from a Sarawak businessman in 2016 was not from illegal activities. The Bagan Dato' MP told the Kuala Lumpur High Court on Monday that as a Muslim, he would have rejected the contribution if it was from illegal means. Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid said this when re-examined by his lawyer, Dato' Ahmad Zaidi Zainal. He was testifying as the first witness in his own defence, with Monday being his 16th day on the witness stand. Wong Sang-woo, alias Wong Shou-chain, better known as Paul Wong, had given a statement to the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission in 2019 that he made the contribution to the foundation upon Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid's request at a dinner function in 2015, and it was tendered under the Evidence Act. The prosecution did not call Wong to give evidence as he could not be traced. The former Deputy Prime Minister's lawyer also did not object to the statement being admitted as evidence. Earlier, he claimed he was a victim of selective prosecution under the then Pakatan Harapan government after the last general election. Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid alleged the corruption charges against him and more than 20 politicians from Barisan Nasional were politically motivated after the fall of BN as a federal government 4 years ago. He claimed the then federal government withdrew corruption charges against 15 politicians from Pakatan Harapan. Among them are Bagan MP Lim Guan Eng, Sungai Buloh MP R. Sivarasa, and then PKR Vice President Rafizi Ramli. He added that investigations by authorities should focus on problems that undermine the legal system instead of using it as a tool for vengeance. The hearing before Judge Datuk Colin Lawrence Sekera continues. Police in Selangor and Perak seized drugs worth about 17.6 million ringgit in separate raids in the respective states. In Selangor, police crippled a drug smuggling syndicate with the seizure of 363.03 kilograms of shabu worth almost 11 million ringgit through the arrest of 2 local men in Shah Alam last August 20th. Selangor Police Chief Dato' Arjunaidi Mohamad said the arrest and seizure were made after a month of intelligence work. The first suspect was arrested in Kampung Baru Ampang, while the second suspect was picked up at a nearby location. Police also seized assets worth about 101,000 ringgit, involving 2 cars and cash amounting to about 1,300 ringgit. Both the suspects were on remand from August 21st until September 2nd for investigation under the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952. In Perak, about 6.6 million ringgit worth of drugs was seized after the arrest of 5 men during an operation in Cenderiang, Tapah. State Police Chief Dato' Muhammad Yusri Hassan Basri said more than 110 kilograms of drugs, believed to be methamphetamine, was seized at a shed that was used as a processing and distribution centre during the raid on Friday morning. Police also confiscated 2 vehicles and jewellery worth about 161,000 ringgit. The 5 men are remanded for 7 days from August 27th until September 2nd. 4 of the suspects have prior records for house burglary and other crimes. Police also seized chemical substances and equipment believed to be used for processing the drugs. The case is being investigated under the Dangerous Drugs Act, which carries a mandatory death penalty upon conviction. The Customs Department has seized more than 41 luxury and exotic vehicles, as well as 9 high-powered motorcycles worth over 11 million ringgit. The vehicles were brought into the country without valid import documents. Customs Department Central Zone Assistant Director General Muhammad Sabri Saad said the vehicles were seized following a special operation conducted between August 15th and August 30th. It was reported that the vehicles were brought in by students from countries including Japan, the United States and the United Kingdom and were worth at least 4.24 million ringgit, with 7.12 million ringgit in unpaid duties. Probe is underway under the Customs Act 1967 for attempting to import prohibited items. In the mood of celebrating National Day, Media Prima Club on Saturday has organised an inter-department futsal tournament. 10 teams were competing to claim the Datuk Seri Dr. Syed Hussein Al Junaid Cup, and Didit TV has emerged victorious after defeating defending champions News United in the finals. The tournament, which was in support of Keluarga Malaysia, also saw the participation of National Sports Institute and Port Day Catering as partners. With that, I'm Anita. Thank you for your company and be well, Malaysia.